Adrian King returned to his penthouse past midnight, his tie loose, his heart heavy. The city glowed beneath him, but its lights felt distant, just like his wife, Lydia, who hadn't spoken more than a sentence to him in days. The only sound inside was the soft hum of the air conditioner and the rain hitting the windows. He set his briefcase down, loosening his cufflinks, when he noticed something odd, the bedroom door slightly open, a faint light spilling out. Lydia never left lights on. He walked closer, each step slower than the last. When he pushed the door open, the sight stopped him cold. Someone was sleeping in his bed. The sheets were tangled, the figure small, curled up, the rhythm of her breathing calm and deep. For a split second, he thought Lydia had returned, but then the lightning flashed through the window, revealing the face. It wasn't Lydia. It was Maya, his secretary. The quiet girl from his office who always stayed late, who took notes even when he didn't ask, who never met his eyes too long. Now she was there, asleep beneath his sheets. Adrian froze, torn between disbelief and a rush of emotion he couldn't name. Her hair was damp from the rain, strands scattered across the pillow. Her shoes sat neatly by the bed, her blazer folded over the chair, his chair. He took a step forward, heart pounding. How did she end up here? Then the memory hit him. Hours earlier, she had been waiting in his office for him to sign a contract. The storm had broken, the driver had left, and he'd told her she could stay in the guest room until morning. She must have entered the wrong room. Simple mistake. Harmless. But the sight before him didn't feel harmless. It felt dangerous. He stood there longer than he should have. He should wake her, explain, make her comfortable elsewhere, but something about the calm on her face disarmed him. He hadn't seen peace like that in years. Lydia's face was always tense, her words sharp, her eyes cold. Here, in the dim light, the world seemed softer, quieter. The loneliness he had buried beneath meetings and success started to stir again. He moved closer to the bed, every instinct warning him to stop. Yet he couldn't look away. Maya shifted slightly, sighing in her sleep, and the blanket slipped down her shoulder. Adrian's throat tightened. He looked away immediately, guilt clawing at his chest, but temptation whispered that it wasn't wrong to just watch for a moment longer. She was innocent. She didn't even know. He turned toward the door, ready to leave, but something held him there. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the ache of being unseen for too long. He remembered the last time Lydia had smiled. It had been months ago, for the cameras, not for him. He exhaled slowly, trying to shake the feeling, trying to be rational. This was a boundary he couldn't cross, not even in thought. Still, the warmth in the room contrasted sharply with the emptiness of every other night. He reached for the doorknob, paused again, then closed the door softly behind him instead of waking her. As he stood in the quiet hallway, the sound of the rain outside grew louder, echoing the turmoil rising in him. For the first time in years, Adrian didn't feel alone, but he also didn't feel right. Something inside him had shifted, something irreversible, and he knew the night wasn't over, not really. Morning light spilled across the room, painting everything gold and unreal. Adrian stirred first, the weight of the night pressing on his chest before his eyes even opened. He turned instinctively toward the other side of the bed and froze. Maya was still there. Her hair shimmered softly in the sunlight, her face calm, unaware of the storm inside him. For one suspended moment, it felt almost natural, like waking beside someone who belonged there. Then reality struck, hard and cold. His pulse quickened. He had to wake her, explain, end this confusion before it became something else. But when he leaned closer, she shifted in her sleep and whispered his name, barely audible, fragile as breath. It shattered whatever restraint he had left. Rain drummed steadily against the glass again that evening. The sky bruised with storm clouds. Adrian stood by the window, the city lights blurred beneath streaks of water, his thoughts heavier than the storm outside. He had spent the entire day pretending nothing had changed, but everything had. Every glance at Maya in the office had felt like a secret. Every word exchanged carried a weight neither of them spoke of. And now, somehow, she was here again. Back in his penthouse, standing by the door, her expression unsure, fragile. She had brought over the contracts she'd promised to revise, nothing more. But the way her hands trembled slightly as she handed him the folder told a different story. "Thank you," he said, voice low. She nodded, not meeting his eyes. The silence stretched until it became unbearable. Maya, he began, then stopped. What could he say? That he couldn't stop thinking about her. That one accidental night had awakened something in him he'd buried long ago. She looked up then, and for a fleeting moment, neither of them needed to speak. The air between them vibrated with everything they weren't supposed to feel. I shouldn't have come here, she said softly. It's not right. He took a slow breath, trying to steady himself. You did nothing wrong. But they both knew that wasn't true, not anymore. His marriage was still real, even if broken. His loyalty should have been to Lydia. Yet, as he looked at Maya, all he could see was the quiet kindness that had become his only escape. You ever feel like you're trapped in a life that doesn't feel like yours anymore? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. She hesitated, then nodded. Every day. Something cracked open between them. The rain grew louder, wrapping the room in a cocoon of sound. Maya's eyes glistened, not from tears, but from understanding. You're married, she said, almost as if reminding herself. Yes, he answered, his jaw tight. But it hasn't felt like marriage in a long time. She stepped closer, not out of boldness, but from something magnetic neither could resist. That doesn't make it right, she murmured. I know, he said, voice rough. But it doesn't make it go away either. For a heartbeat, they simply stood there, two people on the edge of ruin, pulled together by something neither could control. When he reached for her, it wasn't planned. His fingers brushed her cheek, tentative, trembling. She didn't pull away. The world outside faded. All that remained was the storm, the soft rhythm of their breathing, the ache of crossing an invisible line. He kissed her, not hungrily, not violently, but like a man trying to remember what tenderness felt like. She responded with hesitation, her hand gripping his shirt as if to anchor herself to the moment. It wasn't passion that drove them, it was loneliness dressed as comfort. Every touch felt like both a confession and a crime. The rain drowned out everything, the ticking clock, their whispered apologies, their breaths breaking in sync. Time bent around them until nothing else existed but the unbearable closeness of two people who knew they shouldn't be there. When silence finally settled, guilt filled the space they had emptied of restraint. Maya turned away first, pulling the sheet around her shoulders, her face hidden. Adrian stared at the ceiling, heart pounding, the weight of betrayal sinking deep into his chest. What had felt like escape now felt like a trap. The storm outside began to fade, but inside, it had only just begun. He whispered her name once, quietly, as if to make sense of what he had done. She didn't answer. Only the rain did, steady and unrelenting. The dawn broke quietly, pale light seeping through the curtains, touching the room like a reminder. Adrian lay awake, eyes fixed on the ceiling, his chest hollow. Maya was gone. Her scent lingered faintly in the air, jasmine and rain, but the space beside him was cold. For a long time, he didn't move. He simply listened to the city waking up below, to the silence that felt too loud. When he finally stood, the mirror caught his reflection. He looked older, harder, as if the night had carved new lines into his face. He had crossed something he couldn't undo.